ladies and gentlemen, I'm happy to once more welcome you to Lund, this historic city, university city, one of the best universities in the world after Oxford and Harvard. And I want to welcome you all, and I want to particularly welcome my two countrywomen who are here, and it's always a joy to see them here. Now we are going to start. I'm going to ask Jen Samuelson Shulman to deliver the introductory statement.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. This is the 7th time we gather here in Lund to discuss and listen to a diverse set of topics related to the state of the Horn of Africa. Every year takes a great deal of planning and organizing for this event to take place. And I would therefore like to extend my deep appreciation to the organizers, Somalia International Rehabilitation Center and Mr. Abdullah Yama, the Horn of African Scholars, the Horn of African Scholars and local Horn of African associations in Lund. On behalf of the organizers, I would like to thank the Folke Bernadotte Academy, Forum Syd, SIDA, and Lund University for supporting the conference. We are also grateful to the City of Lund, Olof Palme Minnesfond, Folkuniversitetet in Lund, the UN Association in Lund, and ABF Lundabygden for your assistance. We are here today because we believe there's a need to meet and discuss crucial issues for a peaceful development of the Horn of Africa. From the beginning in 2002, these conferences have tried to gather scholars, civics, practitioners, politicians, and other stakeholders from within and outside the region to create a stimulating environment to build trust and confidence among participants. Thus, we hope that the exchange of ideas and gain trust and confidence among participants will enable you to influence development in the region in the most constructive manner. We're meeting here today under the theme of faith, citizenship, democracy, and peace in the Horn of Africa. The terrorist attacks of 9/11 triggered a debate on the role of Islam in conflict-ridden and poor areas of the world. The debate has since been fueled by sometimes extreme views from some Christian communities, viewing Islam with great suspicion and antagonism. The situation in the Horn of Africa is a microcosmos of these issues and debates. By exploring the concepts of faith, citizenship, democracy, and peace in the Horn of Africa, this conference brings clarity to fundamental social political issues in this region. There are linkages between each concept, and their relationship influence the environment to enable sustainable peace in the region. This conference sets out to analyze under what conditions these concepts are compatible with each other, and how the political and social environment need to be shaped in order for these concepts to be compatible. There are more than 130 million people in the Horn of Africa, of which approximately half are Muslims and the other half are Christians or belong to some indigenous beliefs. And I personally had the privilege of only a few weeks ago experiencing 2 celebrations within a period of less than 1 week. The Meskel, the finding of the Christian cross, and the end of the Ramadan. And it was encouraging to see that both groups were celebrating and allowed each other to celebrate the holidays. This conference aims to elaborate on multiple perspectives on above concepts. What are the premises for diverse societies of faith to build harmonious relations between individuals and different ethnic and religious groups? Under which premises could democracy be built? What is the basis for citizenship in the Horn of Africa? These issues are thorny and difficult, and especially in a region which is highly fragile. It is the hope of the organizers that this conference will be a platform to explore the issues by having you here to share your experiences and critically examine under what conditions faith, citizenship, democracy, and peace in the Horn of Africa are compatible, and how the political and social environment need to be shaped in order for these concepts to be compatible. On behalf of Mr. Abdullahi Yama and the organizers, I hope you will find opportunities to build new relationships and make old ones stronger. And let's nurture the road we have embarked on for a more peaceful development in the Horn of Africa. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you for your statement. I'm now going to call upon the Deputy Mayor of this University City of Lund to welcome you all to this great city. Mr. Deputy Mayor, the floor is yours.
Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the people of the city of Lund, I would like to extend our warmest welcome to all of you, representatives from the world of academia, from government authorities, from the United Nations, from the European Union, from non-governmental organizations and religious bodies, to this, the 7th Horn of Africa Conference on the topic Faith, Citizenship, Democracy and Peace. In our media, we too often, only get to see reports of the problems facing to the Horn of Africa. And to be sure, there are many and grave problems indeed. However, I shall not dwell on these problems. We all know them too well. Instead, I want to focus on a message of hope. To me, the opportunities to rectify the many difficulties and to build a materially and as well as spiritually prosperous Horn of Africa are great. You are strategically well placed at the crossroads between the Mediterranean, the Arab world and the Indian subcontinent. You have maritime traditions and are thousands of years old. We have a grand history. You have a grand history. The Horn of Africa is one of the recognized cradles of human civilization. The kingdom Axum, established in the north of modern day Ethiopia and parts of Eritrea, is the first century predated northern European states by almost 1,000 years. The same goes for the age-old trade network between the ports along the Horn. It was established well over 1,000 years before the Northern European Hanseatic League. UNESCO ranks the Horn of Africa as a biodiversity hotspot for its wealth of spices and other commodities. The Romans called this region Regio Aromatica. So, the Horn of Africa is in many ways rich in history, in culture and tradition. But unfortunately, the modern day development of the Horns leaves something to desire. But the flip side of the coin is that you have a huge potential to fulfill. Let me illustrate this by comparing with our own history. As you might know, this part of Sweden used to be a part of Denmark. Many extremely bloody wars were fought between Denmark and Sweden, and these lands were time and again devastated by famines, disease and violence. As late as the 1900s, People in the United States and elsewhere collected money to send to the impoverished, sick and starving Swedes. Adding to that, we were at the brink of a war with Norway. People, which today would call refugees, fled by large numbers to the United States of America and elsewhere. But today, only a lifetime later, this part of Europe has performed an amazing turnaround. Norway and Denmark are our perhaps closest partners and friends. Social and economic progress has transformed the society, the people, the landscape, everything. The multinational Öresund area today reaps the benefits of the increased international cooperation and globalization. Not bad for a region with, in contrast to the Horn of Africa, a comparatively short history, a harsh climate, few people, and a very peripheral geographical situation. With that in mind, I really don't see why this development shouldn't be possible in the Horn of Africa. I believe that you all in this room today have a most important role to play in this development. The challenges facing the Horn of Africa must be overcome in order for you to realize your vast economic and social potentials. They cannot be solved by one country or one actor only. What we need are joint efforts and common decisions. This is just one reason why I believe that cooperative bodies like the Horn of Africa Conference are so important. Having glanced through your very ambitious program, I can see that you will be discussing fundamental issues for the future, like the relationship between politics and religion, between identity and security, human rights, the spreading, deepening of democracy. The very fact that you, representatives from so many countries and organizations and stakeholders in the future of the Horn of Africa can and want to meet and discuss these extremely important issues gives me great hope for the future. I am convinced that your meetings this weekend will not only spare a future sorrows. I do believe that you will contribute to a brighter and better future, not only for the Horn of Africa, but for us all. So I want to thank you for coming here, and I wish you success in your work and a very pleasant stay in the city of Lund. I look forward to seeing you all at the reception this evening at the City Hall. Welcome. Thank you.
Mr. Tranje Danielsson, Deputy Mayor of the City of Lund, thank you very much for that inspiring statement. I am certain all the delegates who have assembled here today will now, after you have made the statement, will now feel most welcome to this great city of Lund. Distinguished participants, I now have the honor to call upon Ambassador Marika Verleen to make a statement. We are honored to have her here. She is such a busy person, but she always finds time to participate in our conferences here in Lund. So we are honored to have you here again. So most welcome. and make a statement.
Thank you very much, Chair. I would say that the honor is mine to be here and to be invited to this conference. And I've been here 3 times before, and it has always been very stimulating and encouraging and informative. So I look forward also to this 7th Horn of Africa conference in Lund. As we enter into this conference, the people and countries of the region are facing ever so daunting challenges, new and old, homegrown and externally driven. The topics chosen for this year's conference, faith, citizenship, democracy and peace, invite us to better understand what unites and divides communities, how good governance links up with the responsibility of the state to protect its citizens from threats and abuses, and how diversity and pluralism should stimulate, not prevent, peaceful coexistence. I will join the previous speaker, Jens, to congratulate Abdilai Jama, our conference coordinator, for bringing together such an extraordinary group of scholars and experts to guide us through a Horn of Africa environment with what I hope larger opportunities for peace and human rights. The first step here in Lund, as in all peace-building endeavors, is to engage, listen and learn to appreciate different perspectives on difficult situations and how best to address them in cooperation. Throughout the Horn of Africa, in different degrees of severity, people face threats to their basic livelihoods. Right now, a combination of factors have put 17 million people in urgent need of humanitarian aid. Drought comes on top of conflict, and in some places the other way around. Spiraling food and fuel prices add to an already fragile development. As drought and development deficit expand, we see how deadly inter-ethnic clashes kill off pastoralist and farming communities alike, within countries and across borders. Increasingly severe resource scarcity is tipping communities from poverty they could cope with to desperation they need to escape. In some localities, we see fruitful interdependent coexistence turn into fierce competition where use of deadly weapons come into play. Livelihood lost breed a search for new survival strategies. Prime among them, it seems, comes criminality, earning assets and cash never seen before by perpetrators or their dependents. In such conditions, money, not vision, fuel armed and deadly violence, luring youngsters, indeed often children, to kill for pay. With little of political process underway, rebel movements and insurgents, once united under a shared vision of justice and democratic transformation, or other forms of political and social change, disintegrate into competing gangs, losing links not only to their former allies, but also to the marginalized people in whose name they took up arms in the first place. Trust is eroded, and dialogue for peace turning more far-fetched? Why is it so difficult to win the peace and so easy to pursue a seemingly endless violence? Do we have a wrong approach to peace mediation, peace building, or conflict prevention? What new entry points are required to make peace and reconciliation attractive? And how shall we make sure that peace, once agreed, is also delivering on its promises? The Comprehensive Peace Agreement in Sudan, the main pillar for a peaceful future of that country, is a 100-page constitutional-like document binding on the parties by law. The more recent peace agreement for Somalia, between the transitional federal government and the opposition alliance ARS, is 2.5 pages and builds on a process of inclusive dialogue to settle the extremely difficult, almost anarchic it seems, security situation and embark on a quick impact recovery. We cannot say that one peace agreement is better than the other. Essentially, they all depend on how the parties honor their commitments and demonstrate that they put the welfare of the people ahead of their own interest for power. To an extent, comprehensive peace agreements set the tune of citizenship and democratic governance, themes of this conference. But so does even more the constitutional frameworks resulting from peace agreements or being part of them. Another theme of this conference relates to faith and religion. Here we are touching norms and values of both the private and the political spheres of life. The politicization of religion is both polarizing and unifying. In Sudan, the dilemma has been addressed under the motto of one country, two systems, illustrating the difference between the Muslim north and the Christian south of the country. However, in Darfur, religion is not an issue in the conflict, although some might prefer political Islam and others a secular system of governance. In Somalia, where Islam is the religion of the nation and clan competition the cause of much fighting, the Islamic courts in 2006 was successful in unifying people in Mogadishu and introducing some time of peace. Presently, Muslims are killing Muslims again, and the world is almost hopelessly looking on. The Djibouti Agreement, the peace agreement between the TFG and ARS, holds great potential for a positive change. As implementation progresses, the agreement should be accompanied by unfailing international support. To this effect, Sweden is this coming Monday and Tuesday hosting a UN meeting on the mobilization of such support. We hope this will strengthen the readiness of the international community to engage in one of the most neglected and serious crises. But what we can do from outside always depends on what is achieved within the country. So back to the theme of this conference. How could faith and the values of human dignity that most religions profess, firstly prevent false myths and demonizing images of the other, and secondly, foment confidence and trust for reconciliation through dialogue. I look forward to the scholarly presentations, and I'm not a scholar here, on this and interrelated issues throughout the conference to inform our understanding of the complexities of peace and security in the Horn of Africa. And I'm sure that conferences like this, with a free exchange of ideas and constructive suggestion, will contribute to a wide-ranging and open-minded partnerships for peace and development. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Marika Falling, for your important statement. And I have the honor to call upon upon Professor Maxis Kuhlman, an outstanding scholar, to come and give a statement. We are happy to have her here today.
Mr. Chair, it's good to be here. It's goed om u weer te zien. Mr. Jama, thank you for the invitation. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we are all familiar with the secularization thesis, which posits, but it is on, let's see, is this better? This one. We are all familiar with the secularization thesis, which posits that as societies develop, religion will become so-called privatized, divorced from the state, and in the end it will wither away. I think if there's one lesson that we learned in the 20th century and that we continue learning, is that no such thing is really happening. People live in both worlds, or the vast majority of people in the world live in both worlds, the world of politics and the world of religion. It is not all that easy to keep the two apart. I want to talk a little bit today about one faith-based community, San Egidio, a Roman Catholic charity that achieved a peace agreement in Mozambique after 16 years of civil war in that country. I want to say a little bit about what that organization is all about, what they did in Mozambique, and then I want to try and draw some lessons from what they did. San Egidio, what for me was very interesting was that it was established in 1968 during the student anti-establishment riots that swept Europe. This was a small group of high school students who wanted to do something with their faith. And they managed over the decades to grow that organization into one that has been a force for good in international relations. The community is a voluntary charitable organization committed to ecumenical and inter-religious dialogue and social concern for the poor. It seems those two things go together. It's not just a talk shop. They are also very much committed to alleviating poverty and to help people who suffer. Their charitable works, activism on behalf of the marginalized, and initiatives in conflict resolution are rooted in its spiritual identity as a community of prayer and fellowship. The core of their teaching is that that local problems are connected to regional stability, which is enhanced by equitable social policies. And therefore, for them, it is very important to also lobby governments and policymakers. For them, interreligious dialogue is a good in itself and a powerful resource for peace building. They build networks for peace across religious boundaries and establish relationships with political and religious actors at every level in society, from the grassroots level right up to the international level. Over time, they have built up a very strong reputation, both in the Islamic and the Christian world, especially because of their success in arranging Muslim-Christian interaction and collaboration. In Mozambique, the community helped to end the civil war, staying the course for the duration of that war. They became involved when the war broke out in 1976 through a young priest who later on became the bishop of one of the cities in Mozambique. And during those 16 years, that community never let up in its efforts to find peace in Mozambique. Of course, when we look back today, we realize that they were assisted by other changes in the international environment, most notably the end of the Cold War. But the fact of the matter is that their real hard peacemaking and groundbreaking work was done during the long and difficult years of superpower interference, which should ring a bell when we look at the Horn of Africa, and also during the era of South Africa's destabilization policy in the Southern African region, and very specifically in Mozambique. There are three aspects of their involvement that I think that are important. The first is that their religious ethos earned them the trust of all combatants and of all the religious communities in Mozambique and of other parties to the peace negotiation. In other words, they managed to build trust because people respected them for their religious commitment. Second, they cooperated with a variety of governmental, non-governmental, intergovernmental, cultural and religious agencies inside and outside Mozambique, and they played an important bridging role at crucial moments of the process. They built personal relationships with the leaders of the warring parties and of other cultural and religious parties. They worked very closely in Mozambique with Islamic and Christian communities, and they extended their social services and educational networks across denominational and traditional lines, organizing, amongst other things, for massive shipments of food and medicine to that war-torn country. Third, their neutrality, their connections, and their disinterested participation in the peace process helped them to serve as host, facilitator, and mediator during the peace negotiations. In concert with the Italian government, American advisors, the United Nations, the Mozambican Council of Churches, and other organizations, San Egidio created and maintained a momentum for peace over 10 months of talk in that country. So what can we learn from this group? I think there are 7 or 8 lessons that one could draw. The first one would be that religion does not only play a destructive role in politics and in international relations. It can be a force for good, for conflict transformation, for reconciliation, and for stability and stabilization of divided societies. Second, for religion to play such a role, those who use it should be truly religious and committed and not see it as a kind of a quick fix. Third, these negotiations can take a very long time, and one needs the commitment to stay the course through thick and thin. Fourth, all parties should be included, and that might be an important lesson for all of us, that everyone has to be included regardless of their political or religious denominations. Fifth, religious commitment should have practical results. Care for the poor and the sick and a spirit of community and tolerance that allows all to be heard and to talk across divisions of nationality, class, ethnic affiliation, and religious difference. In other words, one needs a repeated demonstration of a commitment to a long-term relationship with those who suffer and with those who might help to end the suffering. In short, a commitment to the peace process, no matter the price. Scott Appleby puts this quite nicely. He refers to the need for non-violent religious militants who will, and I quote him, go to extremes of self-sacrifice in devotion to the sacred. 6. The practical commitment to building peace, alleviating suffering, and facilitating a fair and just process of negotiation is absolutely crucial. I think too often Western approaches to conflict is to stop violence at all costs and as soon as possible. No matter how unfair the process, how lacking in justice, peace is just seen as an absence of violence and as not as integrally linked to justice, retribution, reconciliation, and the conditions for human flourishing. Even worse, the self-fulfilling prophecy character of the clash of civilizations had led us in our current world order to an essentialist Western view of Islam as inherently violent and terror-prone, making communication across religious divides almost impossible. What is needed is for faith-based communities, like the lesson that we see from St. Egidio, to assist in bringing all parties in conflicts together, internal and external, governmental and non-governmental, secular and religious, in order to foster understanding, exchange views, to test perceptions, to have an opportunity not only to talk good, but also to do good. In the words of the Islamic scholar Sual Hashmi, I want to conclude with this quote from him. He says, "Religion has always played a central role in defining the essential, timeless, and shared qualities of human life. Religion has always been the most powerful force for uniting human beings in moral community, for motivating them toward constructive and humane behavior, and for emphasizing the universalistic over the particularistic aspects of human life." Unquote. Thank you.